The following is a paid program. Advice and opinions expressed during the program are solely that of Melick Law, not WBEV or Good Karma Brands. All right, and that sound right there, center field from John Fogerty, gets me revved up because I know it gets Rob Melick of Melick Law revved up. Because in addition to being your hometown lawyer, Rob is also a baseball fanatic. And welcome here to Taking Care of Business on your hometown station, 95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge. I'm Amy Hudson, along with Rob Melick. Good morning. Happy Monday, Rob.
Same to you, Amy.
Well, how about this? We're live streaming on Daily Dodge TV.
It's new. It's like I said, I have a face for radio, so we'll see how that translates to TV. We'll see how it goes.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you for being a sport because I just texted you this morning. I was like, hey, do you want to live stream on Daily Dodge TV today?
Well, what's really funny is my paralegal responded to that. I was in a bunch of client meetings, so she told me about that, and I was like, well, yeah, I guess we're doing this. So yeah, it'll be
That's
good.
Fantastic. And we'll be sure to let folks know that they can go back to the video page and check out the live stream. And people can always go to the audio page on dailydodge.com and listen back to our shows. You join us the third Monday of every month here on 95.3 WBEV. And for folks that don't know, you are an estate planning attorney. So you help folks with things that you always say, not my words, but things that people don't really want to talk about.
It is. It's one of those topics where, again, having done this for the better part of the 17 years I've been in practice, I haven't always been an estate planning attorney, but definitely the majority of that time. And ever since I've had my own firm since 2016, my practice has been focused exclusively on estate planning. And yeah, it's a topic people don't want to discuss. It's something that, if you pulled 100 random people at Walmart and said, hey, what about estate planning? And, some of them may have done it, a lot of them wouldn't have, but they know it's important. They know it's something that they ought to do, something that they ought to look at. But the amount of misconceptions there is about estate planning, what type of plan, whether I need a plan, when I need a plan, there's a lot of misinformation about that. So that's why I do these types of shows, to give people that information so they can make an informed decision about whether and what type of estate plan they in fact want to create. And again, what may work in time one may not necessarily be applicable in time two. I mean, we all grow up, we all get older. Sometimes we have children, we get married, get divorced, people pass away. I mean, there's any number of life events that could cause people to update their estate plan or really serve as the impetus for them to get an estate plan. And we're here to explain all those life changes and how, if at all, they affect or impact your estate plan.
Yeah, and definitely want to make sure that folks know the studio line is open for their questions at 885-4446. 885-4446 is the studio line, and you can also text at 887-9595. The text line is 887-9595. Thanks to Jeff Hall, who is producing the show today, and also to Ninja, who is producing our live stream on Daily Dodge TV at dailydodge.com. We have a big day. Not only do we have a big show today, we have a big day on Wednesday, Rob Melick.
Looking forward to it.
Woohoo! Milwaukee baseball fun. Brewers taking on the San Diego Padres. They kick that series off tonight. And I was telling folks during Hometown Today that we're going to ask you for a prediction. And what was funny, before we hit the air, you're like, well, on the game or the season. So both. So now there's an extra layer of pressure. How are they going to do Wednesday against the Padres? And then overall, what are your thoughts about the season?
Well, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to take advantage of knowing 15 games worth of data before making that decision. If you'd asked me this 2.5 weeks ago, I think my response might have been a little different. But fortunately, they're 11-4 right now, which is a great record.
It is.
So predicting 90 wins, 90 and 72 is what I'm calling here.
90 and 72. Yep. Okay, I'm going to write this down.
And as far as the game on Wednesday, I like our chances. We got our guy Fastball Freddie on the mound, so let's see what he can do. And ironically, last year's game he pitched at too. The game we sponsored last year, he pitched magnificently last year. Brewers won that game as well. Yeah. So hoping for a repeat. So we'll see how that goes. So I'm predicting, let's go with a 5-1 win.
5-1 win.
We'll
okay.
keep it reasonable there.
For Wednesday. All right, I made notes. So 5-1 win for Wednesday, and then season 90-72.
I mean, this is all guesswork here.
It's all guesswork.
We'll see what we can do. But again, it's based on information that's available and everything else. But that's my best guess at this point, Amy.
Well, and thank you so much for sponsoring our Milwaukee baseball bus trip on Wednesday. It is so much fun, and I did let folks know that Matt Heyer is going to be joining us. You're bringing Matt along as your guest for the day. today.
And that'll be my guest for the day. We've brought him the last couple of years. We always had a good time. He's about as big a Brewer fan as I am there. So it'll be a good time now. And I enjoy that. I enjoy sponsoring the trip. And it's nice just chatting with people in a non-office environment, a friendly environment while we're just talking baseball and everything and enjoying hopefully a beautiful day at AmFam Field.
Yeah, it will be a beautiful day. And you told me last year if you had walkout music, what it would be. And I forgot. What would your walkout music be?
Definitely Phil Collins in the Air Tonight. That's
right.
That's great walk-up music, with the drums and everything. And how about you, Amy? I forgot your answer too.
Oh, it was probably some Lenny Kravitz song. I'm not sure. I'd probably changed my mind a bazillion times.
Sure. Well, you gotta temper it to the season. Like I said, if it was a day game, in the air tonight, probably wouldn't work out so well, right? Maybe you have to switch that up to center field as we have for the bumper music, for instance. Put me in, coach.
Right.
I'm ready to play. But like I said, that's always a fun question. I like asking people because again, you don't have to know anything about baseball to know the answer to that question. So it's fun.
Your hometown lawyer, Rob Melick of Melick Law, with us here this morning. Rob joins us the third Monday of each month, so he can help you get some things in order. And not only are we live from the Slumberland Furniture Studios on 95.3 WBEV, we are also live streaming on Daily Dodge TV this morning, so you can check out the live stream on our video page at dailydodge.com. Rob says often that estate planning is a topic that most people choose to ignore. It's not pleasant to think about the end of life, but what is pleasant is that peace of mind that comes with knowing you have properly planned. And you have to start somewhere. And of course, it starts with a conversation, someone reaching out to set an appointment. Oh, and I also wanted to mention briefly, your team is growing. Because I was thinking about someone making that call to Melick Law. They're going to talk to one of your paralegals, and your team is growing. So fill us in on the latest, Rob.
We are. So now we have 3 paralegals at the firm, which is great. Very happy with all of them. Stacy, who's been with me the longest, she's still there. But I hired 2 new paralegals, Taylor and Shannon, both of whom have been paralegals before. So they have experience. They're both very good at what they do. So very happy to have 3 paralegals on the team here now. So
that's wonderful.
More people available to answer calls. And like I said, it does start with that conversation. And I'd even argue before the conversation, it starts with a willingness to listen. Now, I'm preaching to the proverbial choir here, right? If anyone's listening or watching this, obviously they're either really bored or they're choosing to take an interest in the topic we're discussing here, and hopefully more of the latter than the former. But, that's really what it starts with. It starts with a willingness to understand about what it is. And, even a matter of hearing it from neighbors. I had a client earlier this morning who had met with a former client of mine and said, hey, you really ought to do this. And it took them a while before they finally picked up the phone and called. That's human nature. But just knowing what an estate plan can do, that's really kind of the first step. Because, again, a lot of what I do, Amy, is based on misconceptions. People think what an estate plan can do because it worked for this person, but there may have been different laws at that time. Situations are different when we're dealing with a married couple versus a non-married individual. There's any number of variables that might change how an estate situation went for one person versus another. So out of state, a lot of people don't even think about that. There's 50 different states with 50 different laws as it relates to estate planning, let alone international. All of that can be very different. So it's important to keep an open mind and learn additional information. And then, like I said, after that, give me a call, set up a meeting. Just to give information here, my main office is in Richfield. That's where my main office is. But for most people who are listening or watching this, Beaver Dam is probably a more convenient location. I do use the building that Sandy and Matt work out of in Beaver Dam, right next to, the Joanne Fabrics at the Heritage Mall. I also have offices in Port Washington and West Bend. So any of those 4 locations, the best way to get a hold of me is by telephone, 262-347-3444. Again, 262-347-3444. I do offer free initial consultations at all of those office locations. I do also offer virtual visits, phone calls, telephone, Zoom, FaceTime, whatever works for you. And finally, I do also make house calls. I have some clients who have mobility issues. I have some clients who would simply just prefer to meet in the comfort of their own home. I have clients who have young children and they don't want to get a babysitter. They just rather throw on a TV show and meet with the estate planning attorney. That's great. I'm happy to do it. Again, what I've learned in my time practicing, Amy, is that there are a lot of reasons why people put off estate planning. There's a lot of reasons why people say, I'll get to that next year. I don't want the cost of an initial consultation to be an issue. I don't want the location to be an issue. I don't want the timing to be an issue. I mean, I have client appointments all the way through 8 p.m. tonight.
Oh, my goodness.
So I'm willing to meet with people after hours. Again, weekends, nights, early mornings, whatever I can do to make it as easy as possible for people to learn more about estate planning and then ultimately create a plan. I mean, again, while I'm happy to give information, the mere information is insufficient. It's good to be knowledgeable. It's good to know about things, but until we actually put pen to paper and get the document signed, the information in a vacuum really doesn't do much. So again, I try to make it as easy as possible. And also one other thing I will mention is for WBEV listeners or viewers, as the case may be, I do offer a 20% discount off of services. So if you did find out about my law practice through either this program or through my radio show in general, let me know and I'll happily take 20% off the bill for you.
That's so generous of you, Rob. Rob Melick, your hometown lawyer of Melick Law, is with us here this morning, live from the Slumberland Furniture Studios, and also live streaming on Daily Dodge TV at dailydodge.com. Certainly reach out with your questions if you need some advice. Rob is here to help. Our studio line is 885-4446, 885-4446, and you can also text at 887-9595. Robin, you mentioned, early on that conversation, the willingness to learn, the willingness to listen, and just understand what an estate plan can do. What does an estate plan do, and why is it something that really is essential?
Sure. Well, first of all, it's never a one-size-fits-all, Amy. The estate plan that might work for the person I see at 9 a.m. this morning may not be at all the type of plan that works for the person I'm seeing at 8 p.m. tonight.
Right.
So first and foremost, it's identifying what risks you face. So the risk that everyone faces once they reach the age of 18 is incapacity. And people said to me, 18, what are you talking about? Why would an 18-year-old need an estate plan? So that's where I always start and kind of defend why I believe that everyone, once they reach the age of 18, needs to have an estate plan in place. And simply put, once someone reaches the age of 18, there is nobody who can make medical or financial decisions for them if they become incapacitated unless they have an estate plan in place. So again, if you've heard me on the radio before, you've heard me give this example quite a bit, but I'm going to do it again. So basically, I have two boys who are 14 and 11.
Oh my goodness, 14 and 11 already.
Time flies. It sure does. So 14 and 11. So I'm going to pick on my 11-year-old because he's a little bit easier of an example here. His birthday is September 3rd. He was born on September 3rd, right at the start of his school year. So he will turn 18 basically the first week or so of classes, depending on when they start school, before Labor Day, after Labor Day, whatever the case is. So right around the first week of his senior year in high school is when he'll turn 18. Now, the overwhelming majority of 18-year-olds in Wisconsin live with their parents. A lot of them are completing their senior year of high school. Like my other son, Grady, he's born in February, so half of his senior year, he'll be 18. Most people are in that situation. Most people are living at home with their parents. Most people in that situation are on their parents' health insurance. None of that matters. The moment Hudson or any child reaches the age of 18, we as parents lose the ability to make financial and medical decisions for them if they become incapacitated, if we do not have a power of attorney in place. And a power of attorney is a type of estate plan. It's a document that allows you to nominate people who can make medical and financial decisions for you in the face of incapacity. Now, if you went to any local high school and polled 100 18-year-old seniors and asked them, hey, if you become incapacitated, whom would you want making decisions? I'd say the overwhelming majority would pick their parents. Certainly not all, but I'd say 90+% of them would pick their parents. And if you polled 100 parents, 100% would say, well, yeah, I want to be able to make those decisions for my children. And I would say that same group of 100 parents would incorrectly assume that they automatically have that ability. Well, I'm the parent. They live in my home. They're on my insurance. Of course I can make that decision. And the answer, simply put, Amy, is no, they can't. Not unless they have an estate plan in place. And that is not unless the 18-year-old has an estate plan in place. It says, if I become incapacitated, here's who I want making medical and financial decisions for me. That surprises a lot of people. Frankly, that shocks a lot of people. But
I was really shocked when I learned that when we first started hosting your show together. Right. I had no idea. That is really startling.
You bet. But again, as I always tell my clients, I'm not here to say whether the law is right or wrong. I'm here to tell you what the law is. And that is what the law is. Right? So again, for people in the listening audience or the viewing audience here, you may say, well, I don't have children who are that age. Well, maybe you have grandchildren who are around that age. You're between the ages of, let's say, 18 and 25. I mean, really any person over the age of 18, regardless of age, needs to have that. But once you start getting a little older, you start looking at more advanced types of estate planning documents, wills, trusts, things like that. So, and then the main event that causes people to think about this oftentimes is children going off to college. A lot of times people may say, again, incorrectly assume that while they're 18 living at home, well, yeah, mom and dad can make those decisions. But when they go off to college, we need to have something in place. And yes, that's true, but it's also true that you need it before they go off to college. You need it the moment they turn 18. So that's why whenever I do any sort of speaking engagement, that's usually where I start, Amy, by saying that every single person over the age of 18 needs to have some form of estate plan in place. Now, again, going back to what I said before, it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. Right. Most 18-year-olds don't have much money. They don't have much by way of assets. They don't need a will, and they certainly don't need a trust, but they need some form of estate plan. But then as time goes on, we need to modify that or update that. And really kind of the next two events would be children and marriage. It doesn't necessarily occur in that order, but the combination thereof is the next kind of life event that requires us to look at the document. So let's just say, for example, we take that 18-year-old. That 18-year-old decides, yeah, I see what he's saying. Or better yet, I guess the parents of the 18-year-old say, hey, look, I see what Rob's saying. I need to make sure my kid gets these documents signed, because that's usually how it goes. Most 18-year-olds don't have the foresight to do it on their own, clearly, right? But that would be the next step. And then the next step in that equation would be children or marriage. Marriage, for the simple reason of most people who are married are going to want to have their significant other or their spouse be the person making those medical and financial decisions, not their parents anymore. Right. Well, we need to update the documents. The other thing with children, once you have children, you need to have at least a will or a trust in place. Why is that? Because of guardianship of those minor children. Again, one of those areas of misconception. People will think that, well, if I have a written document, if I have it notarized saying my parents or my sister or my brother will get the kids, that's good enough. And as an estate planning attorney, I have to say, no, it's not good enough. It's actually not worth the paper it's written on. The only way under Wisconsin law we can enforce guardianship provisions is if they are either in a will or a trust. Literally nothing else works. So again, anyone who has children under the age of 18, or maybe better yet, has grandchildren under the age of 18, should let those children of theirs know who are raising their grandchildren that, hey, if you guys don't have an estate plan, courts are going to make guardianship determinations. And I've seen this many times in my practice that, again, the people that the courts will decide may not necessarily be the people that the parents would decide. No. The analogy I use there is if somebody passes away, or if a set of parents pass away without an estate plan in place, basically what's going to happen is anybody who wants to serve as guardian is going to petition the court, and they're going to very likely get a lawyer. And that lawyer is very likely going to say, okay, here is not only why my client should be the guardian, but either implicitly or explicitly why these other people are not as strong of choices. And for people who just lost their parents, that's not a great situation. And at the end of the day, the judge is going to do the best that he or she can, but is only really presented with what the lawyers put in front of him or her. And so that can cause a problem too. The other point that's kind of a corollary to that is I'd say just under half of my clients who have minor children will elect to have a non-relative serve in that position.
I'm always surprised by that. And then when you explain the reason why, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. I get it now.
Well, a family friend. I mean, you probably have more in common with your friends than you do your family. People that go to school with your children, who play sports with your children, who have similar values in terms of rearing kids as your children. The family will always stay in their lives. But again, if you're asking grandparents to serve as parents, it's one thing when the grandparents are, let's say, in their mid-50s when the children are born. Well, now they're in their early 70s when the children reach teenage years.
It's a big change.
It's a huge change. And again, it goes back to the mentality that I try to always encourage my clients to overcome, that estate planning is a set it and forget it type of document. It's not. It needs to be fluid. It needs to be updated based upon life changes, because those life events do occur. I frequently boil it down to a simple thing to memorize, the 3 Ds and a B: death, divorce, disability, and birth. Those are 4 life events that oftentimes will cause people to want to update their documents, right? And we need to be able to update those documents. Because what I always tell my clients is this, and this is an obvious statement, but I say it anyway. As the attorney, I'm not going to know that. I'm not going to know 99% of the time when something happens to one of my clients. So you got to let me know. And once that event does occur, we can talk through what our options are and how best, if at all, to update the estate planning documents accordingly. But again, in the case of guardianship, it could simply be the mere passage of time. The difference between serving as a guardian for a 2-year-old 18-year-old is very different, and the criteria are different than the standard for being a guardian of a 16-year-old. 14 years have passed during that time. I'm sure all of us were quite a bit different 14 years ago, and we will be very different 14 years from now. Positives and negatives, but the passage of time, it occurs. And in the immortal words of Chris Carter, Father Time is undefeated. We all are going to get older. We're all going to experience aging, and aging brings about some positives, but it also brings about some negatives as far as guardianship. So again, that's kind of the progression. And the final aspect of the progression would be the creation of a trust. And again, that is another area rife with misconceptions. That's the common theme here. A lot of times when I meet with clients, people say, well, trusts are only for the wealthy. I'm not wealthy. I don't need a trust. And my response to that is, do you own your home? And the majority of people do own their homes. Well, if you have more than $50,000 worth of equity in the home, you really ought to consider a trust. Now, whether that places you in your mind as wealthy or not wealthy or somewhere in between is subjective, right? One man's wealth is another man's poverty and vice versa. But what I will say is this: the reason I pick $50,000, and that's 50, by the way, not 15. It gets confusing. So 50, right? That's what we're looking at.
I like that we can do visuals.
Yeah, I say we got visuals. I was just thinking that. Like, I normally put that up, and I'm like, nobody sees it, but now people do see it.
Yeah.
So $50,000. If you have more than $50,000 worth of probate assets, the estate goes to probate if we don't have a trust in place. And that's something that surprises a lot of people. And again, what is probate? Probate is the process where a court oversees the administration of an estate. And broadly speaking, Amy, there's 3 reasons why we want to avoid probate. First is cost. Average cost of probate in a state right now in the state of Wisconsin is between $5,000 to $10,000.
Wow.
That's an average. Some are more, some are less. Second is timing. Average length of probate is about 12 to 18 months, and it all becomes public record. So those are 3 negatives that most people want to avoid. Again, if you have more than $50,000 worth of probate assets, meaning in this case, you have more than $50,000 worth of equity in your home, the estate will go to probate before we even get to any other assets. So the only way to avoid that is to create a trust. So that's kind of the progression, right? I mean, a couple just getting married, maybe they're renting, maybe they find out they're pregnant with their first child. Maybe the trust is something they don't want or need at this point in time. They just want to have a will because of the guardianship issues. And I have a lot of clients who are in that situation. And what I do for those clients is I afford what I call built-in credits. So if you create the will with me and then you ultimately decide to get a trust, whatever you paid for the will, I provide as a credit to offset the expense of a trust down the road.
Oh, that's nice.
Right. I always tell my clients, I can't guarantee you my rates will stay the same. In fact, I can tell you they won't stay the same. Right? Inflation, everything else, right? But at the same time, whatever you did pay in time 1 gets applied as a discount in time 2.
Your hometown lawyer, Rob Melick of Melick Law, is with us this morning live in the Slumberland Furniture Studios at 95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge, and also live streaming at dailydodge.com on Daily Dodge TV. This is a paid program. Advice and opinions expressed during the program are solely that of Melick Law, not WBEV or Good Karma Brands. Of course, the studio line open for your questions. If you need some advice from Rob, give us a call at 885-4446. 885-4446. And you can also text at 887-9595, 887-9595. Thanks to Jeff Hall producing the show today, and also to Justin the Ninja Wilski. It's kind of funny from our vantage point, and you're a natural, by the way, on camera, Rob. Fantastic. But we can only see part of Ninja from where he is operating the camera. So we're having fun being in the Daily Dodge TV studio for the first time since all of our upgrades. So again, thank you to Ninja and to Jeff Hall. Rob Melick is an estate planning attorney, and he says often that estate planning is a topic that most people choose to ignore. And also people should know, we've talked about this quite a bit, but it's not just for seniors. And at different points in someone's life, when we do have those big life events, and if you do have an existing plan in place, it probably is time to take a look at that existing estate plan. And if your head is swirling from new things that you have learned, I really do remember the first time when I learned from you, Rob, that I need to have an estate plan for my children when they're 18 to make those decisions. My head was spinning. So we definitely want folks to reach out. Please share your number again.
Sure. Best way to get a hold of me for any of my locations is 262-347-3444. Again, 262-347-3444. You can call me on that number 24/7. That applies applies to all my offices. You can also text me at that number as well. Again, 262-347-3444. I do have 4 office locations. My main office is in Richfield, right across from Cabela's, to make it an easy landmark there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very easy. It's literally across the street from Cabela's. For most people who are listening or watching this, my Beaver Dam location, actually Sandy and Matt's Beaver Dam location that they let me use, right next to the Joanne Fabrics there. I do also have offices in Port Washington and West Bend. I do also make house calls. If you'd rather me meet in your home, I'm happy to do that. In addition, I can participate in virtual meetings, whether by Zoom, telephone, whatever you prefer. 20% discount for WBEV listeners. One thing I will also say is, if you have, kind of to tie into your previous point, Amy, if you do have existing estate planning documents and you have some questions about them, I review those documents on a complimentary basis. So I will look over the documents and give what I call a baseline assessment. And I've done this thousands, might be an exaggeration, but certainly hundreds of times in my career, where a set of clients will come in with some documents saying, hey, we had these drafted a few years ago, maybe a few decades ago, whatever the case is, and just say, hey, Rob, do you mind taking a look at them? And then what I do at that point is I say, sure, I'll read through them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell the story of your estate plan. I'm going to just go off of what is written here right now. And if there's a point of this story where you don't like what I'm saying, let me know.
I like that. You're going to tell the story just based on the documents that they brought in.
And it makes it easier, because what I found in my practice, people are like, well, no, that person's dead. I don't want them on there. Or, I had a falling out with that sibling. We need to switch that up, because they don't know. They don't. It worked for them in time one, but does not work for them now. So if I can just kind of address the key areas of the estate plan and find out from them what, if anything, they want to change. I always call that preference sufficiency. Are the documents drafted in such a way where they meet the preferences of my clients? Mm-hmm. That is 100% for my clients to determine, but it's for me to identify. The second issue is legal sufficiency, and that's 100% for me to determine as the lawyer. Are these documents as drafted legally enforceable? Because laws do change. Certain things are different than they were before. For instance, we mentioned HIPAA before. Well, HIPAA didn't exist prior to 1996, I believe it was. So if the documents are drafted before then, they can't possibly be HIPAA compliant because HIPAA didn't exist.
Yeah.
Wisconsin marital property laws came into play in 1983. Well, if the documents were drafted before that and there's no marital property agreement, well, we have to adjust that accordingly. So there's any number of legal issues that may change in that regard. So it's important to make sure that even if you do have existing estate planning documents, consult with me or an estate planning attorney of your choosing to make sure that they still not only match from a proficiency or from a preference standpoint, but also from a legal standpoint.
Your hometown lawyer, Rob Melick of Melick Law, with us here this morning in the Summerland Furniture Studios on 95.3 WBEV, your hometown station, and also streaming live at dailydodge.com. Rob and I, the first guests here in the newly revamped Daily Dodge TV studios. Thank you to Jeff Hall producing the show today, and also to Justin the Ninja Wilski. And I see there is a little ninja just magically appeared in front of our big screen there, Rob. It's good stuff. Rob Melick is an estate planning attorney, and he really does have a gift for making things that you might think are complicated easy to understand when it comes to estate planning, when it comes to elder law and probate, and that peace of mind that you are able to provide, Rob. That really is priceless when folks finally have an estate plan that is really tailored to them. It is going to work, and they can be rest assured that their wishes will be carried out.
Sure. And I always tell that to my clients, Amy, that when it comes to estate planning, you're really first and foremost doing this for your loved ones. I mean, yes, doing it for yourself, giving you that peace of mind is wonderful, but it's doing it for your loved ones. They're going to grieve. Everyone grieves. Now, one thing I've learned, one of these classic, they don't teach you this in law school, is people grieve differently, and I respect that. People process death and differently, and also could depend on the time and the method of the death. I mean, if someone was suffering from terminal cancer for a long time, they're put out of their misery, that's going to be treated differently than someone who suddenly passes away in a car accident, right? I mean, as human beings, we process that differently. But one thing I can tell you is I've never once had a client say to me, you know what, I really wish I hadn't done that estate plan, or I really wish Mom mom and dad hadn't created that trust. In fact, it's just the opposite. By creating the estate planning documents, by making sure that your wishes are memorialized in legally enforceable documents, you're giving your children one less thing to worry about. You're giving them more time and space to grieve appropriately, as opposed to going to probate courts, meeting with lawyers, meeting with judges, or having to deal with financial institutions. It's setting it up in such a way that you're relieving them of that particular burden. And I've had hundreds of clients who became clients of mine after I did estate planning work for their parents. They said, you know what, you did a trust for mom and dad. It worked really smoothly. Now it's about time that we get our plan in place. And these are folks usually in their 40s, 50s, 60s. So the parents are older than that. They pass away. They see how smooth it was. And then they decide, you know what, it's time for us to get this done too. So, I stand really ready, willing, and able to do that. One of the things I'm probably most proud of in my practice, Amy, is I have dozens of clients on a multi-generation basis. And when I say multi, I mean more than two, three-level basis there. I have hundreds of clients where it's, I represent the parents as well as the children, but many more where I've represented at least three layers of generations there. So, because again, it's that process. It's that process of going from, I need to have these basic powers of attorney. I just had children. I need to have a will. I want to make sure my estate avoids probate. I need to have a trust. So it just keeps cycling down, and people are, it's one of those things where death is inevitable. I hate to say it. It's one of those things people don't like talking about, but I always say that the mortality rate in the human race remains steady at 100%. It's going to happen. We're all going to pass away. It's just some of us will plan for it appropriately and some of us won't. So we have the mechanism to plan for it appropriately. It's just a matter of you reaching out and making that call to myself or to an estate planning attorney of your choosing to make sure it gets done appropriately.
Yeah, and I certainly want to remind folks that our phone lines are open for their questions and their calls at 885-4446. 885-4446 is the studio line. And you can also text. Jeff Hall keeping an eye on the text line for us today at 887-9595, 887-9595. I just shouldn't think about us being on camera. That's what it is, Rob. Again, you're natural. But yeah, the moment I pause to think like, oh my gosh, we're live streaming on Daily Dodge TV, I'm just not going to think about it.
I mean, it is what it is. I do a lot of public speaking engagements. I've had groups of as large as 300 people. I don't think about it. I just talk. You and I are having a conversation. Yeah. Justin happens to be there. It is what it is. I'm just going to keep talking until someone tells me to stop talking. I'm going to keep talking. So,
well, it's your show. You keep
right.
talking.
Well, that's what it is. I mean, you have the estate planning show. You sprinkle in a little bit of baseball, a little bit of human interest, and we kind of go from there. So, speaking of human interest, the reason I didn't make the last month's show is I was actually on a cruise. So.
And you said it was fabulous.
It was great.
What would you like to share? I'm so happy that you were able to get away and have some downtime.
Me too. It's one of those things where it's tough. Running a small business. I have three great paralegals, but at the same time, I feel like emergencies come up. I need to be there, but I also have a family. I have a wife and two sons, and they deserve to have some time spent with me too. And we decided to do this, and it was great. Not a fan of flying. Hadn't flown in 7 years prior to that flight.
Good. Did you have a bad experience?
No, it's one of those things where, well, first of all, I guess just from a couple of perspectives, the last time I flew, I was over 350 pounds. So
oh my goodness.
I've lost a little weight, which is good. So that made the flight a little easier.
Lost a lot of weight. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. It's an ongoing process, Amy, but it's one of those things where that helped too. But, I'm still 6'2". I'm still as broad-shouldered as I was before, but it really wasn't that bad. And I slept most of the flight. And actually what was convenient was we flew Southwest. And it was one of those things where just from a planning perspective, we got to the airport very, very early. We flew out of Midway. And, they made the announcement, 4 seats, we'll give you this extra credit. Long story short, we ended up getting $3,200 in Southwest credits to get in flying through Tampa as opposed to flying directly to Houston.
Oh, my goodness.
And we got in like 3 hours later. We were just spending the night at the hotel anyway.
Wow. So it takes 7 years for you to take a flight. And then you're like, sure. You're just going to roll with it.
Well, and I think my wife was a little surprised. But I said, you know what? It is what it is. The flights are the flights. I mean, we're going to be on 2 flights as opposed to 1. And we'll be in the air maybe 45 minutes longer for $3,200. Yeah, I mean, let's do this.
Nice.
And, you know, Erica flies out on Southwest all the time. Her family lives in Baltimore. So, you know, it'll pay for a couple flights out there.
Sure.
They're actually going out. She and Hudson are going out in a couple weeks for my niece's skating show. So that trip is free now. So, you know, there's a lot of benefits to doing that.
Yeah.
But the cruise itself was great. We had a balcony room, so that was nice. Got to see the ocean consistently. And this is the ship we went on. It was Royal Caribbean. It's the 5th largest ship in the world for cruise ships. Yeah, it was 6,800 people. Wow. So, yeah, it was a community. But it was fun. Then we did some excursions. I'm not a great swimmer, so the 2 of the excursions were water-based. Erica took the boys on those, but the one I went on was seeing the Mayan ruins, and it was beautiful. It was really cool. Just the architecture and being able to walk around. Of course, it was like 97 degrees, but you know, we survived. We figured it out and came back home to snow, which is fine.
Oh
but,
my goodness!
You know, no big deal. But no, it's definitely something I would do again. I really enjoyed the cruise. The food was outstanding. I mean,
good.
Really good seafood. I'm a big seafood guy. No one else in my
Me
family
too.
eats seafood. But
what's your favorite?
So my favorite is scallops. And I just discovered scallops. I never had a scallop prior to about a year and a half ago. And then I had them. We went to a hibachi place. And I was like, yeah, I'll try them. I'm like, these are amazing. Where have these been all my life? You know? So had scallops. And the cruise, we had scallops twice. But they had the best crab cake I've ever had in my life. Like, it was one of those things. They had the crab cake, and I'm like, and again, I'm the only one at the table who eats them, so I got to have everyone else's crab cake.
There you go.
It's the advantage of being the only seafood person in the house. But yeah, I don't eat vegetables, but I eat seafood. So there you go. But no, there's a lot of good shrimp, and they have different theme nights. And they had an Asian night, and they had this really hot shrimp in a soup, and it was tremendous. So.
I'm starving now. Yeah. All of that sounds so good.
It was, and there were plenty of stuff for the boys to eat. I mean, they're pickier eaters than I am, believe it or not. And
they don't eat vegetables?
No, goodness, no. My wife is not one that bad. Although the boys definitely don't eat vegetables. But yeah, no. Everyone left happy and full, and you know, the flight back was fine, and yeah, it was good. It was like I said, we would definitely do it again. In fact, we are doing it again. My father-in-law is retiring in January. Or he says he's retiring in January.
Oh boy, so he said this before.
I'll see it I'll believe it when I see it.
Okay.
You know. But anyway, long story short, either way, they do want to do a cruise for him. So not this upcoming summer, but summer 2025. We're planning on going on another cruise, so that'll be fun.
Oh my goodness, that'll be a great time. It sounds like you had an amazing vacation.
We did. It was, like I said, the weather was perfect except for the first day at sea. I mean, when we left Galveston, it was not great, pouring rain. But other than that, once we got out to sea, it was, other than being really hot, but I mean, you're in the Caribbean. It's expected to be really hot. So
no surprise.
I'll say that one didn't blindside me, Amy. But no, it was a great time. So I did miss the March show there, but happy to be back for April. So
yeah, and it's great to be back. Rob Melick, your hometown lawyer of Melick Law, is with us here this morning in the Summerland Furniture Studios on 95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge, and also live streaming on Daily Dodge TV at dailydodge.com. Rob joins us the third Monday of each month. He is an estate planning attorney and really has a gift for making complicated things seem not so complicated. And you're such a great listener too, Rob. You help people with estate planning, elder law, avoiding probate. And it really all starts with that conversation, making that first appointment, whether it is the very first appointment, you know that you need a plan and you're wondering where to start, or taking a look at any existing documents. And what can folks expect when they do have that initial appointment? Do they bring anything with them, or is it just a conversation with Rob Melick?
Yeah, that's a good question. What I always encourage my clients to do, or prospective clients to do, is to first and foremost identify whether they do or do not have existing documents. If they have existing documents, then we kind of break those into two groups. Because I have some of my clients who they're like, yeah, I have existing documents. I had a will from 40 years ago, and then I don't even worry about that. They know it's not what they want anymore. But I said, if you're unsure about what, if anything, can be salvaged from these documents, bring those with you. And then I always encourage my clients to bring with them, and people keep this information differently, but everyone has access to it in a variety of ways, would be a phone book, address book for names, addresses, and phone numbers for anyone who's going to have a role under the plan, because we will need that eventually. So I always tell my clients, if you do decide to go forward, we're going to need this eventually. So it might make it easier if you bring that book or that computer, cell phone with you that has all that information. A lot of people have spreadsheets that they've created with all that information. Just bringing that with you. And like I said, it's always a free initial consultation. One of the things that I will say is my average time for an initial consultation varies, obviously depending on client need, desire, desire, and just awareness coming in. I mean, I have some clients who said, you did a trust for my sister. I want you to do the exact same thing for me. Well, okay. Then I also have clients come in and be like, look, I know nothing about estate planning. Can you kind of walk me through what my options are? Obviously, the second one's going to take a lot longer than the first type of meeting. I'd say on average, though, my initial consultation typically varies between 30 and 45 minutes.
Oh, my goodness. People can make time for that.
Absolutely. And I'm always happy to take more time to explain additional information. I'm not trying to, push anybody out the door once they hit that, 45-minute mark or that 3-hour mark or whatever the case is. I want to make sure my clients have a basic understanding. And again, I always tell my clients this: I don't need to make you experts in estate planning. That's not necessary. I need you to understand why you're better off for having the documents that I'm creating for you than you were before you had the documents in place. If I've accomplished that, I've done my job as the lawyer to make sure that your preferences are being memorialized in a set of legally enforceable documents. So to me, that's kind of the threshold there. For my clients who have existing documents, sometimes it can take a little longer just to review them. I mean, I have some clients who bring in binders that are about this thick.
Wow.
And it's one of those things where of that, maybe 10 pages worth of information is what we need in order for me to give that baseline. I'm not saying the information isn't necessary, but in order for me to identify what's necessary, the problem is those 10 pages don't necessarily just jump off the page to me. I mean, with all due humility, I've reviewed a lot of these documents. I've drafted a lot of these documents. I generally know what to look for. The problem is it's like finding the needle in the haystack, right? I mean, I can look through it. I can kind of get an idea of where it is, but sometimes that may take me a little bit longer. And if that's the case, I've had some clients say to me, hey, can I email you or drop off at one of your offices my documents first? And I'll say, yeah, absolutely. I'll review it on my time. That way I'm not wasting your time during the meeting. I'll identify it, and I just kind of go through and, like I said, tell that story of the estate plan. The only difference is it's not interactive if they drop the documents off. I just make notes and say, okay, checklist, and that's fine. And we just identify them accordingly. But again, it starts with that initial call. And again, if there are specific questions, call me, text me. I'm happy to answer those questions for my listeners and now viewers here. If that turns into a meeting, great. If it doesn't, then you have more information than you had before. So again, best way to get a hold of me, my number for any of my offices, 444, again, 262-347-3444. You can call or text me at that number at any time, and either myself or one of my paralegals will get back to you to schedule that meeting. And again, as far as offices, my main office is in Richfield, across from the Cabela's in Richfield, right off 4145 there. I do also have an office in Beaver Dam, West Bend, and Port Washington. Free initial consultations and 20% discount for WBEV listeners or viewers.
You are so good. I could probably just send you down here just by yourself in the Daily Dodge TV studios. I think you're more relaxed in front of the camera, Rob.
I don't know if that's the case, and I like having conversations with you. So please don't do that. I'm not saying I wouldn't be nervous or I would be nervous if it was just me, but I like having the conversation. The conversation makes it. Like I said, to me.
Being on the air with us, which is the third Monday of every month. This is a bonus week because we have our Milwaukee baseball bus trip on Wednesday. You are a huge Milwaukee Brewers fan, and they kick off that series with San Diego tonight, San Diego Padres. And so you're predicting a 5-1 win on Wednesday, and the season overall 90-72. Hopefully I won't lose this piece of paper that I've scribbled that information down on. Do you know where we should go first? Like what food stand we should hit on Wednesday first?
I went to opening day this year. It's my sister and I have that tradition. I think we've gone the last 10 years or so, and it was like 36 degrees walking in, freezing rain and snow. But once you're in the stadium, it's great. I got a pretzel, and the pretzel was okay. It was a little cold, but whatever.
Oh, yeah, because we had all that crazy snow on opening day.
That's right. So I don't think the pretzel was cold because of the snow. I think the pretzel was cold because it's undercooked, but that's a different issue. But no, it's it's funny. One of the things that's great about the Brewer Stadium, which is unique, I've never seen anywhere else, is they let you bring stuff in. I mean, if you want to bring in, you didn't know that?
No.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't. It's funny. I was just talking about this the other day. So. Aside from alcohol, which clearly you can't bring in, makes sense. Glass bottles, aluminum cans, can't bring those in. And it has to be original factory sealed, because obviously what people do is they just dump out the water and put in alcohol, right? Sure. So it's got to be actually sealed. You're allowed to bring in pretty much anything you want, food or drink-wise. so long as it's, like I said, closed off. So I always bring my Diet Mountain Dew into the stadium.
Okay.
That's my drink of choice.
You did that last year?
I did.
Not notice that.
I do it every Brewer game. Except this year I left it in the car. I was so mad at myself. And it was one of those things, I realized that like 20 feet before walking into the stadium, and I told my sister, she's like, you're not going back for that ice. It's 36 degrees. We did general parking. I said, no, forget it. I'll figure it out. I'll get a bottle of water in the stadium or whatever. But but no, they let you bring that in. So, peanuts, whatever, pretzels, sandwiches, whatever you want to bring in, you can do that again, as long as it's not alcohol, not glass, not aluminum can, and factory sealed. And I think they do limit you to 1 liter. Like you can't bring in a 2-liter bottle or whatever, but like a regular 20-ounce drink, 1-liter drink, they let you bring that in with no problems.
Well, I hope we will get to hear Euchre behind the mic on Wednesday. And again, thank you for sponsoring our Milwaukee baseball bus trip. Melick Law and Columbus Family Dental making the fun possible for us this Wednesday as we head into Milwaukee to see our Brewers take on the San Diego Padres. Rob Melick, your hometown lawyer of Melick Law, joins us the third Monday of every month. Please share your contact info again, Rob, before we wrap things up for the show.
Sure. Best way to get a hold of me by call, by text, 24/7, 262-347-3444. Again, 262-347-3444. Main office in Richfield, satellite offices in Beaver Dam, West Bend, Port Washington. I do also make house calls, telephone calls, Zoom calls, and 20% discount for WBEV listeners and viewers.
So generous. Rob, again, you have such a gift for making the complicated seem easy and really helping people to understand estate planning, elder law, avoiding probate, all those things, that really, like it or not, as we continue on our path here, the end is inevitable, and it's good to be prepared for those that you will leave behind.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself, Amy. Great job.
Thank you, Rob Melick. Rob Melick of Melick Law. Rob is your hometown lawyer, and this has been a paid program. Advice and opinions expressed during the program are solely that of Melick Law, not WBEV or Good Karma Brands. We'll see you Wednesday.
See you Wednesday, Amy.